Good morning. I'm Barbara Colton, and I'm a member of the Board of Trustees here. Welcome. Welcome to all the ghosts, goblins, right there, and blue-haired. This is a really scary group of people. Welcome to all those online as well. And thank you all for joining us on this beautiful fall Sunday. Hasn't it been a gorgeous week? The fall colors have been spectacular. I'm thinking it's nature's way of giving us a little hope as we enter some darker times this winter. Here at Mainline, we nurture our loving community that cares for each other, supports each other as we go in our quests for meaning in life, and inspires us to bring more compassion and justice in the world. Here, every voice and every heart is welcome. Our worship together is the centerpiece of our community and our communal life here at MLUC. This is a place where we can let go, be held, be challenged as we share and reflect on life's journey. Through song and story, silence and the spoken word, we open our minds and our hearts to a place of deeper understanding. Leading us today, we have Reverend John Morehouse, our senior minister, all jeweled for the day. Dawn Star Sarah Borschelt, our director of learning and family ministries. Oh no, what happened to our David Brown? Our Halloween-loving David Brown isn't here. Oh no, oh dear. What's that? Jody will just have to carry it all. Thank you, Jody, thank you so much. And in addition, we'll have, of course, Tina will carry on because David just has disappeared on us. I don't know what has happened, but we will muddle through, as we will many things in the coming days. No matter what, we're going to have a hell of a time this morning. Now, let us join together in affirming our mission statement. Okay, together we transform lives through love, service, and our welcoming faith.
in betwixt and in between. We move in the liminal spaces that show shades of what can become, what can be. We light this chalice as a symbol of courage to move into that time of this and that, and not this and that, and not that. With patience and faith and love and hope that this time will pass like the sun that moves in between rising and setting, reminding us that beauty resounds in betwixt and in between. Now please rise in body or in spirit as we sing hymn number 1, May Nothing Evil Cross This Door.
Rabbit listened. One day, Taylor decided to build something new, something special, something amazing. Taylor was so proud. But then, out of nowhere, things came crashing down. The chicken was the first to notice. Cluck, cluck, what happened? What a shame. I'm so sorry this happened. Let's talk about it. Cluck, cluck. But Taylor didn't feel like talking, so the chicken left. Next came the bear. Grrr, rawr, how horrible. I bet you feel so angry. Let's shout it out. Grrr, rawr, grrr. But Taylor didn't feel like shouting, so the bear left. Sorry, that was the bear shouting. I was just enjoying shouting. The elephant knew just what to do. Trumpta, I can fix this. We just need to remember exactly the way things were. But Taylor didn't feel like remembering, so the elephant also left. One by one they came. The hyena, hee hee, let's laugh about it. The ostrich, gulp, Let's hide and pretend nothing happened. The kangaroo. Tisk, tisk, what a mess. Let's throw it all away. And the snake. Shh. Let's go knock down someone else's. But Taylor didn't feel like doing anything with anybody, so eventually they all left until Taylor was alone. In the quiet, Taylor didn't even notice the rabbit, but it moved closer and closer until Taylor could feel its warm body. Together they sat in silence until Taylor said, "Please stay with me." The rabbit listened. The rabbit listened as Taylor talked. The rabbit listened as Taylor shouted. The rabbit listened as Taylor remembered and laughed. The rabbit listened to Taylor's plans to hide, to throw everything away, and to ruin things for someone else. Through it all, the rabbit never left. And when the time was right, the rabbit listened to Taylor's plan to build again. "I can't wait," Taylor said. "It's going to be amazing." Ready to start. I invite children and youth to go to their classes now. Youth, 8th grade and up, are going up to the couch room. 6th and 7th grade going to the Wonder Room, and everybody else is meeting me in the atrium.
Need Indeed is the recipient of MLUC's October Outreach Offering, whose mission is to transform teaching and learning in the Philadelphia's public school classrooms by connecting the classroom with the community. The organization aligns with UU Principle Number 1, the inherent worth and dignity of every person, and Principle Number 4, a free and responsible search for truth and meaning. Need Indeed seeks to increase equity in education by improving the educational outcomes and experience of students in grades 3 through 8 throughout Philadelphia. Partnering with some 100 teachers annually, Need Indeed is present in more than 100 classrooms and in up to 60 schools in the district, and annually serves 3,600 to 3,900 students. The students in each class identified a community issue around which they then become advocates for and take action. A Need Indeed student shares. Originally, I didn't think service learning would be fun. I thought it would be boring. But as I started to do it and draw about gun violence, it was starting to get fun, and I was putting my heart into it. Also, when we started to go on walks and get people's opinions on gun violence, I started to relate to what they were saying. Now, I don't want to wait for change. I want to be the change and help the community before it's too late. You may donate today with cash by following the instructions on the screen or by using the QR code in your order of service. Your offering will now be gratefully received.
Let's join together in the affirmation of gratitude, which is printed in the order of service or on the screen. Let us be grateful when we are able to give, for many do not have that privilege. Let us be grateful for all those who share their gifts, for we are enriched by their giving. And let us be grateful even for our needs, so that we may learn from the generosity of others.
I share a quote from the author James A. Baldwin. Trust life, and it will teach you, in joy and sorrow, all you need to know. Candles of Community is how we publicly share joys, concerns, or sorrows that members of our congregation are experiencing that they want us all to know, so that we can support them and with loving intention, hold them in our hearts. Pat Jordan lights a candle of sorrow for the unexpected passing of Reverend Joan Sabatino. Reverend Joan was a UU Justice PA leader who had forged valuable relationships with our state government in Harrisburg for many years. Her passion was the good fight, and we are encouraged to honor her memory by taking the lead in this effort and advocating for UU values. Pat says, Joan would encourage our members to forge connections and continue to make a difference in a tough and divisive environment. Thank you, Reverend Joan, for all you've done. We will miss you and hold you in our hearts. Jane and Gib Lamont light a candle of concern for their daughter, Joanne Lamont, who was admitted to the University of Virginia Hospital this week with pneumonia. For Joanne and her family, and for Jane and Gib, we hold you in our hearts. Dee Owen at Kit Burns light a candle of sorrow for their friend Ron McKennon's passing. Ron was a folk singer and teenage member of liberal religious youth in the 1960s. For all who remember Ron with fondness, we hold you in our hearts. Earl Claremont lights a candle of sorrow for Ann Hiller, who died yesterday. For all lives she touched for many years, and most recently, we hold you in our hearts. Our final candle is lit for all of your joys, concerns, or sorrows that are left unspoken or are too deep for words. And we hold you in our hearts.
It's good to see you all here today. Welcome. Nice full house, beautiful day. So much at stake in our lives, isn't there? I think a good time for meditation is now. So I invite you to close your eyes and to put your feet on the floor. To sit back in your seats and try to straighten your shoulders as if there is courage beating in your heart. And we breathe in together deeply, and we breathe out. The great Buddhist teacher Pema Chodron says that all things fall apart, and then they come together to fall apart again. All life is an endless washing of tide in and tide out. We are part of the water that washes in and out. Our hearts together here in this sanctuary, this place of peace. Our hearts beat as the tide goes in and the tide goes out. That action of change is reflected in the breath that we take every moment of every day. We breathe in and we breathe out. And we know that there is struggle, hatred, lies abroad in our land. And we know that our neighbors and our friends and our family and those of us who are here today are the living proof that there is life beyond all that. Let's take a moment in silence to remember that we are better together than we'll ever be apart.
Who knew? Bow your head, don't be bold. You'll survive by doing what you're told. Love is earned, and we can choose. But the more you grow, you learn the truth. And all I want is to make you proud. If I would run, would I let you down? You said if I have to live without you, I don't want to live forever in someone else's heaven. So let them close the gates. Oh, if they don't like the way you're made, then they're not any better. If paradise is pressure, oh, we'll go to hell together. You and me, all we need. Blood is thicker than the pages that they read. I'm afraid of letting go of the version of me that I used to know. Crying tears in Sunday crowds. You took my hand and we walked out. You said if I have to live without you, I don't want to live forever in someone else's heaven. So let them close the gates. Oh, if they don't like the way you're made, then they're not any better. If paradise is pressure, oh, we'll go to hell together. If I have to live without you, I don't want to live forever in someone else's heaven. So let them close the gates. Oh, if they don't like the way you're made, then they're not any better. If paradise is pressure, oh, we'll go to hell together. Oh, we'll go to hell together.
Thank you, David. Thank you, Jody. Beautiful. More than a few of you asked me this week, why in the world is a Unitarian Universalist minister preaching on hell? It's a fair question. After all, in our tradition, we don't necessarily even proclaim an afterlife. That's really up to you. But at the Universalist side of who we are, God is love and everyone goes to heaven. So what in the world could he be talking about? Maybe that's why you're all here today. What in the world could he be talking about? So I'll begin by saying emphatically that I do not believe there is an everlife of damning hellfire where you have absolutely no chance of escaping because of some stupid little mistake you made somewhere in your life. The hell that I know about is the one that we live through in the here and the now. The hell that I know about is the one that we live through in our lives collectively. And that seems to be where we are right now, doesn't it? And just when I thought hate and lies and rhetoric couldn't get any worse, they do. To the point of where we have actually become numb to most of that, haven't we? Because that's what the human being has to do when they are faced with such unimaginable nonsense that they can't even make sense of a reality. You become numb to it, which of course is unfortunately the purpose of that, is to make us numb. And it worries me that a third, at least, of our country actually believes this alternate reality of dark and damnation. The vulgarity, the hatred, the racism, the attacks on gender and reproductive justice, the warming climate. There's a reason we've had 3 weeks of gorgeous weather. It does leave us numb, doesn't it? But we are complicated beings, my friends. And it is possible for us to not only think differently, but also love the same. It is possible that you will meet somebody who actually believes in this alternate reality, and yet they're the most kind and loving person that you could meet, except for that piece. And that is why we are all capable of darkness. Solzhenitsyn said, the difference between evil and good runs right through the center of the human heart. And history is replete with those roads to hell, isn't it? Nazi Germany, Stalinist Russia, Jim Crow America. None of us are immune to that. It's easy to see, it's harder to pull apart, it's harder to get back to the center wherever the center is. But I think that that's probably why we are here. That religion can actually, when practiced in a way that is open and inclusive, be the road back from hell. We are here to pick up the pieces when things fall apart. As David sang from the song, David Archuleta said, if I have to live without you, I don't want to live forever in someone else's heaven. So let them close the gates. Oh, and if they don't like the way you're made, then they're not any better. If paradise is pressure, we'll go to hell together. Amen. The point of our journey is to find paradise together and get out of the hell that we walk through because of life being what it is. And I'm always reminded of the many stories that I've heard from the other side about those who approach the pearly gates of heaven. 3 approached the pearly gates, and there was St. Peter, and he said to one, what is your faith? And she said, I'm a Catholic. And he said, did you go to confession? She said, I did. Come in. The next one approaches the gate, and he says to him, what is your faith? He says, I'm Jewish. And St. Peter said, well, did you go to the Wailing Wall? And he goes, I did. Well, then come on in. And the third to approach the gate, somewhat timidly, is the Unitarian Universalist. And St. Peter says, what is your faith? And he says, well, I'm a you. St. Peter looks through his book to make sure that's on the approved faith book there, and he said, all right, did you bring a warm dish to share? The way we get to paradise does matter. And who knows, it may be a warm dish to share. So I'd like to give a question a go. As you know, I like to do this. And if you're new with us and you've never done this before, don't worry. It won't hurt. If you'd really not like to say anything, then don't. That's always up to you. That's where you use. The question is this, and I'd like to turn to your neighbor and just take a few moments to answer, when did you walk with someone through hell together? When did you walk with someone through hell together? And we'll give that 3 or 4 minutes. Let's go ahead and give it a go. Let's bring it back in, folks. So I realize this is kind of tough for some people. I'm seeing some tears out there, and I realize that this is a tough question. It may not be something you want to talk about with anybody. Maybe you want to talk about it with your minister, so that's always an option, by the way. I'm here, and I'm here for you. But I'd love to hear a few answers if anybody would like to share. And Beth and Jay have microphones, so if you just raise your hand, we'll hand you a mic. Anyone? Yeah, there's one.
Yeah, because now it's over, so I don't mind sharing. But last year, unfortunately, I suffered a pregnancy loss that turned into something called a molar pregnancy, which is so rare, but it's a pregnancy that can turn into cancer. So I had to get monitored like every week. And I luckily avoided chemo, but I had to have two surgeries, one at Fox Chase. And it was just really hard, and I did that with my husband, and I was telling this lovely gentleman that I just met that when I got my last blood draw in July, and I just cried in the car, and I was like, I did it, it's over, and I'm happy to say I'm pregnant again with twins, and yeah. So I made it to the second trimester this time, so yeah, hopeful. But yeah, that was definitely walking through hell, that experience.
Thank you. Okay, on over here. Yes, go ahead.
Sure. Hi, I'm Renee. So I'm in my mid-30s now, but when I was 12, I had a sister who was 18 who died from plastic surgery complications. So that made, I don't know if anyone suffered like a grief at a very young age, but that made growing up like kind of a strange experience for me because it was something that not many other people understood. And my best friend, who like is kind of like a sister to me now, her mom also died when she was 15, like a few years later. So going through that experience, I feel like we kind of walked in hell together. But I feel like we've both been able to be there for each other and grow a lot. And when I was in college, my parents adopted two other girls from Ukraine. So now I have two younger siblings. So that's like, it doesn't like fill in the whole of what was lost, but I feel like now that I'm 20 some years later, I'm really grateful to have all those people in my life and have had those experiences. Like I don't regret, I wouldn't change things.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. Our heart is with you. Anyone else? Well, I'm sure there's more stories to share. Not probably in such a large group of people. Although I do notice this about Unitarian Universalists. We actually are very confessional. I don't know if you knew that or not. I mean, of course, I see it all the time as a minister. I'll sit down, I'll sit in an airplane, and it comes around to someone asking me what I do for a living, which I usually try to avoid if I can. And if I tell them, they're like, "Oh, I'm sorry, I haven't been in church in a long time." And I said, "You are forgiven. I'll give you the sign of the chalice." I, of course, have also had my journeys, both personally and collectively. The hymn that we sang, the first one, "May Nothing Evil Cross This Door," was a song that was sung at the close of every service in the congregation in South Bend, Indiana, my first congregation. They had been vociferous in their objection to the Vietnam War. They used to have a big, huge house, kind of like you had here, a manse. And during the war, they came out against the war, and the building was firebombed. And they retreated into their religious education building, which was pretty ugly. But anyway, that's where they were, and they held that space, and because of that traumatic hell that they'd gone through together, they always closed the service with that song, "May Nothing Evil Cross This Door." I think maybe you can feel the pathos there, that they felt they needed to have that sense of sanctuary. There are so many others, of course, that I could tell you about, and probably not appropriate for a public pulpit like this, but I have been placed in situations where there was only one way to go, and that was to walk through the hell together with people who are in such terrible shape. People who have come to times in their lives when they simply did not know what to do. I will sometimes, although less lately, disparage Unitarian Universalists for not grabbing on enough to this thorny question of why evil happens in the world. But I think I've answered that for myself at least, and for the faith of all of us. I would hope you would see that while we do tend towards optimism and sunshine and daisies every day, there is in all of us that sense of heartbreak that needs an entire community to hold us in. And we're never as far from that as we might think we are. That's why when I meet people who come to us from a different understanding, I look first for what is normal about them. I look first for their goodness. Because often what we think of as hatred and evil is really a misunderstanding of the truth. And certainly we're seeing that, I think, in the election we're in right now. In order to face the darkness, in order to walk through hell together, we have to be able to come to grips with fear. Fear is the great mind killer, said the Buddha. Its power, which is largely illusional, is still very much alive. And its color is darkness. And I don't mean darkness in a sense of being all bad, but darkness in that sense of not really knowing what's going to happen. And of course, here we are at this liminal time, as Tina was saying in our opening, this time when the light begins to change and it gets darker, and then literally we lose an hour next Sunday. And I look forward to seeing you all an hour early on the Sunday when what do we do? Fall back. Right, I always get it confused. The holiday of Halloween, or Shaman, or that holiday of the Day of the Dead, which is not quite the same thing as Halloween, has deep psychological meaning. There's a reason we have that holiday. And it's interesting how it's not like a national holiday or anything, but it probably ought to be. At least according to David Brown, who does it really up, it should be a national holiday. Maybe it's a UU holiday. Because going through hell together means that we move through our fears towards transformation. That's what you say every week in your mission statement, in our mission statement. We talk about transforming lives. But you can't transform a life unless you are willing to face the darkness. The great Catholic mystic Matthew Fox called this the via negativa in Latin, the negative way. An understanding that even in darkness we can find meaning if we go through it together. When the Catholic mystic St. John of the Cross wrote his masterpiece in the Middle Ages, The Dark Night of the Soul, most people think it's about his time rotting in a prison cell, but that's not about it at all. The short abstract of that is that he's telling you that only when it is darkest can you see the stars. And that's saying something in the Middle Ages. But to go outside and see the true North Star, that is where you find meaning. And I remind all of us of that adage that when one door closes, another opens, but it can be dark in the hallway. And we're going through the hallway right now, in case you didn't know. This is a long corridor of hallway. Got some darkness there, a little bit of light under some doors, but no one's thrown one open yet. And we're going through it, and we're going through it together, friends. We are not alone. As we draw ourselves into the shorter days that are before us, this is the time to expand the Spirit. This is the time to hold one another's hands as we journey. And of all the gifts we've received from becoming human beings, Homo sapiens, I think one of the best is our imagination. Because imagination can help you move from one place to another. It can help you imagine something that's better than what you have. It helps you imagine the door being opened. I have never found much hope in looking at the darkness alone. I can only find it when I imagine going through it. And if we're to be a religion that's worth anything, we ought to be able to walk through the valley of the shadow, right? Whatever that shadow is. And we're walking through it. And we're doing it together. And after the next Sunday, as we get to election week, we're going to have the church open on election day from 3 p.m. to 9 p.m. to just come and sit and listen to music and be with one another, because of course we're not going to know anything. And the next day, on Wednesday, we're going to have what I'm calling a vigil, an opportunity to share what's on our hearts. We know that we can become monstrous if we do not come together. That's truly the problem. We risk becoming something without a soul. We risk becoming zombies. Why do the zombies go to the Unitarian Universalist Church? Brains. My friend Tom Beloit talks about this. He says, look around, look at our culture, our world. There's all this fear, there's all this reactivity. We have cable news with commercial breaks, fear with regularly scheduled breaks for appetite. That's crazy. A whole population now staring at their phones. Back and forth, not really knowing why they are there, hoping to be someplace else. And I've been really interested in this cultural fascination with zombies. What's that about? Why are we getting what was once just sort of a fringe cult thing about zombies to Brad Pitt being the rescuer of all the world from zombies? What is a zombie anyway? A zombie is someone who doesn't have a soul. A zombie is someone who does not have a sense of worth. They are all fear and appetite. They are not reason and love. And this popularity with zombies has only risen. Defeating zombies, loving the ones we have around us, has to happen when we transform it from the darkness. Zombie books are very popular now. I don't know if you've been to a bookstore recently. Remember bookstores? They're great, yeah. There's a humor section in the bookstore. I went there the other day to look at something, and there I saw Pride, Prejudice, and Zombies. I'm not kidding. I was thinking, well, this is spicing up the usual 10th grade English paper. Jane Austen in a zombie apocalypse. Unless you think all of this is a bunch of silliness, it has been revealed that the United States Department of Defense does, in fact, have a zombie preparedness plan, just in case. So what does all this zombie theology teach us? That we can move through darkness as long as we hold on to our souls. It's teaching us that being alive is better than being dead, that being with one another is better than not. And I think of someone no less than Thoreau. Thoreau, some of you may have heard about Thoreau, Henry David Thoreau, of course, famous for writing on Walden Pond. How many of you have been to Walden Pond? Anybody here? Yeah, most of you have. Great place to go. Pretty pond. Deep, really deep, deep pond. How do we know that? He plumbed it. Of course he did. What else is he going to do? Anyway, I would go there. It's sort of, for me, kind of a mystical place. And it was there that he wrote, "Not until we are lost do we begin to understand ourselves." Not until we are lost do we begin to understand ourselves. For a time, I served on the UUA's Committee on Candidacy. They had something, they don't have it anymore, unfortunately, where we would interview seminarians who are going through the process of becoming UU ministers, and I'd run into the most innovative people. Really, people like Caroline Bright, for instance. One woman told me about how during her internship while she was working in a domestic violence hotline, she was asked by the young woman on the other end of the phone if this person should come down to the hospital. She said, "I'm here, my boyfriend has kicked me and I'm carrying triplets and I'm going in for an ultrasound and I don't have anybody else." And so that's what she did. She got in her car and she drove to the hospital and she found this woman and she claimed her role as a chaplain and she sat next to her and they did the ultrasound and the babies were all right. And I don't know how that ends, but the fact that someone was willing to go there and walk with them through that hell speaks volumes to the hope that our world still has. And through this darkness that we're in now, this hell of a time that we're in, I would remind you that we are Unitarian Universalists. We have 500 years of standing with people who need a place and a person to stand with. We've been there. We were the first there with women clergy. We were the first there to stand up for gay, lesbian, bisexual, and transgender lives, for queer lives. We were the first to be there whenever we needed to stand for the environment. We were the first to be there when someone who is ostracized perhaps neurodivergent. We were the first to be there. That comes from 500 years of being there. And that comes from the covenant that we are as people. And that covenant means you're part of a team. Did you know that? Coming here makes you part of the team. You didn't sign up for anything except showed up. You're part of the team. Everybody's chosen for the team. And the team we got to do right now, that's right, woo, is right. The team project we have right now is the sanity of those we love through the next 3 weeks. Do I get an amen? Amen. All right. I also think about existentialism in a time like this. Well, who doesn't, right? I think of the myth of Sisyphus. You all know the myth of Sisyphus. So there he is. He's kind of making fun of the gods, and the gods have enough of this upstart, and they say, okay, you're going to be consigned to rolling this rock up the mountain, and then it'll roll down, and you roll it back up again. Albert Camus, who wrote that, said, in accepting his Nobel laureate, if Sisyphus returning to the bottom of the mountain to start pushing the rock up again, over and over again, is sometimes performed in sorrow, it can also take place in joy. It's Sisyphus's choice. The struggle, Camus said, the struggle itself towards the heights is enough to fill a man's heart. We also must imagine Sisyphus as happy. All of us, my loves, all of us are going to face this darkness, this demon of our lives that is all around us. They're everywhere. They feed on fear. They know who we are. They got our number. Demons feed on the fear and secrecy that holds our hearts captive. Fear is that most primal emotion, and that's what we have to defeat. Why fear? Think about your own failings. I think about mine. Why are we greedy? Because we're afraid of not having enough. Why are we angry? Because we're afraid of being hurt again. Why are we cynical? Because we're afraid of change. Naming our demons helps us achieve the freedom from what holds us in darkness. We are meant to be together and do this together. That is the only way we are going to survive these times. That is how we walk through hell together. So I close with these words from Henry David Thoreau. When he wrote in Walden Pond, he said, I wish to live deep and suck out all the marrow of life. I want to cut a broad swath, to drive life into a corner and reduce it to its lowest terms. And if that proves to be mean, then to get the whole and genuine meanness and publish that to the world. Or if it is sublime, to know by experience that I gave a true account of it. Many people think that that was all about Henry David Thoreau, and of course that's why it's so famous among sophomores, is because it's all about me. But little known fact of Henry David Thoreau on Walden Pond is most days he walked the 2 miles to Emerson's house for supper. And Emerson walked back with him. Emerson was walking with Thoreau through his hell. And as we draw ourselves into these shorter days, my friends, remember that imagination is our power. Holding one another's hands is our power. This is how we will get through hell together. We will find our way through this darkness, and we will come out the other side, and we will open the door, and the light will shine again. So may it be, and amen. Our closing hymn is number 17, Every Night and Every Morn. Please rise in body or spirit. long, friends, no matter if you have to pick up the book and sing from it. We are always standing at the center of our own sacred space. And Pema Chodron said, everything that comes into circles like ours exists to teach us something that we need to know. Things fall apart, and then they come together again. For now, the service truly begins. Please remain seated for the postlude.